Hey Solos, it's Samantha. So you're thinking of getting a DVC membership and you want to know if it is worth it as a solo traveler. Well, solo spoiler, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and we are going to hear from one of those opinions today. Hi everyone, it's Samantha, as I just said, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. This week we're talking about DVC. I don't know if you can hear from my voice, but I actually have been battling a pretty bad head cold all week. And all week I was like, oh my gosh, thank God I have this week's episode already recorded. So I'm very excited to share with you this conversation with Jeff Fun. Jeff has already been on the podcast, actually. He's become a friend of the podcast, and he's also a Patreon member. And I had posted a conversation with Francine, who's also a friend of the podcast, on Patreon about what it's like to be a DVC member. And she had a great perspective, but Jeff had a different one. And he's like, I would love to talk about my perspective too. So in this week's episode, you get to hear from Jeff and what it's like to be a DVC owner, not necessarily as a solo, but as kind of a larger constellation of a family, and then like what a solo membership might look like. And then down below, there is a link to Francine's conversation as well. It's on Patreon. It's a YouTube video, and it's not as like edited as the conversations are. But you can watch it for free this week, so you can kind of see both sides of it. Now, what is coming up? Let me let you know what's coming up. So I'm going to post an episode. It's going to be scheduled to go out on like Tuesday about my December trip. I'm going to edit that this weekend. But then Monday and Tuesday, I will be at Disney World. Yes, that's true. On a solo trip to go to the Festival of the Arts. It's a one-night trip. We're going to see what it's like. And my plan is to record my experience there, trying all the different things at the Festival of the Arts, and putting that together into an episode. The idea is that that will go up on Thursday or Friday, because I'll be back. But in case I don't get around to it for whatever reason, well, for all the busyness that life can bring, you will have the December trip to be able to like learn about my experience semi-solo in December. And as always, if you are a free Patreon member, you can get the videos and pics and stuff like that of my trip while I'm there. I find that's a much more stable place to put stuff rather than on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, which is where I technically am on but have not been updating. And you can listen to this on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Although, as I've said before, I'm having some difficulties with YouTube, so I apologize if you're not getting it right away, but I'm still trying to figure out why the problem keeps happening. So it's hard to know how to fix it, because no one seems to be having that problem but little old me. But that is enough for my husky voice right now. I'm going to need to gargle with some hot water and honey after this brief introduction. And I'm going to go over to our conversation with Jeff. It was so wonderful to speak to him again. And we spoke like November, actually. December was so busy I didn't get a chance to put that episode up. So we might mention some stuff about like Christmas and things like that. And, just ignore it. All right, everyone, let's get right on into it. Jeff is back, and Jeff is back to talk about DVC.
Yes, hello. I'm so excited.
Jeff, can you reintroduce yourself?
Sure. I am Jeff Fun. I live in the northern suburbs of New York City, and I've done some solo trips, some semi-solo trips. I've done a lot of family trips as well. I'm sure a lot of our listeners or your listeners have also done plenty of family trips as well as doing their own solo trips. I do currently have a young son. He is a little bit over a year old. So I look forward to bringing him on trips in the future.
Yeah, it's nice to like know what trips are like for different groups of people, and especially to like now plan for a different type of trip completely with a toddler in the future. But on Patreon, we did like a mini episode with someone who was a DVC holder, and Jeff was like, I am also a DVC owner and I have some other thoughts.
Yes.
And so because you have the experience of traveling with like these different groups, I was like, well, let's talk about your different thoughts.
Yeah, I think with DVC I was trying to think about like what makes it different, but it really does it changes the way you think about a trip to Disney.
Mm,
It kind of flips the script a bit. 'Cause I know you were talking on one of your recent episodes about planning a trip for December. And, was it going to happen? You were thinking about it and it's coming together. When you're in the DVC system, it's currently the second week of November when we're recording this, and I looked at availability. There's literally one resort with a single room type available for 3 nights in December, and that's it. So you very much missed the boat for this December.
well, it's funny because it's a semi-solo trip, this December trip, and I had booked like Monday through Thursday, and I was like, well, let's see if I can just get a room for the Thursday and Friday. Nothing on the regular system. I thought I'll try DVC rentals, and they're like, we have nothing for that day, but here's stuff like in mid-November. And I was like, wow, that's not close at all.
Nope,
Yep.
nope.
Yep.
And honestly, I think that sort of stuff is what led my parents down the DVC path to begin with. We're talking 30 years ago at this point,
Right.
but there was one year we were the family that spent Christmas at my grandparents in Florida. They lived on the Gulf Coast of Florida, about an hour south of Tampa. So we'd spend actual Christmas Day there, spend a few days, and then the four of us would go up to Disney World and do that peak time, between Christmas and New Year's. We did several years of that in a row. And there was one year we had our trip booked. We were staying at the fairly new Caribbean Beach Resort, and my parents wanted to add a single day. And the only availability, we did our first night at the Polynesian, and then we moved to the Caribbean Beach. And after that, we were like, ooh, Polynesian, this is nice. We have so much more space. I think back then the moderates still had full-size beds, double-sized instead of queens.
Uh-huh.
It was like it was definitely a step up. And after that, my parents had friends who had purchased DVC, so they started doing their research. And then our next Christmas, we were at Old Key West.
And that is the original DVC resort. So it must
Yes.
have felt so kind of like big and like luxurious. It's not quite the right word, but like in comparison to a moderate, for example.
It was a huge step because not only did we stay at Old Key West, but my parents got us a two-bedroom villa. So, and my grandparents joined us, which my
Oh,
grandparents never joined us.
right.
So we suddenly had all of this space with a giant kitchen in this beautiful new resort with a phenomenal pool. And it was a complete change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you were, I mean, a young adult, I guess 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to do the
I was
math.
a teenager. I was in high school at the time. Yeah.
Okay. And so now, fast forward through these 30 years of staying in the different kind of DVC configurations, like how does it compare to like in the different ages? Because a lot of the people that listen to the podcast are, in our age and the like Xennials group and all that. And now that you're booking it, how does those comparisons feel?
Um, it certainly, our family has certainly changed over the past 30 years. My parents bought 150 points, um, and that got us, let's say, 4 nights in a two-bedroom at Christmas time. But then we started, once my sister got married and had kids, then we were a family of, trying to do the math, that would have made us a family of seven. So then we were no longer going at Christmas. We were going spring or over the summer. My sister's a teacher, so going over the summer is the most realistic for her. And then we were staying in a two-bedroom plus a studio. Then once my husband came on the scene, we didn't have to change the configuration, right? We could still do the two-bedroom plus the studio. But now that we also have a kid and we're now a family of nine, trying to figure out, first of all, schedules for all nine of us.
Oh,
Where
yes.
there's literally, my sister and I did math. I was like, there is 1 week next year that we can make this work, one single week. And also just stretching the points is a real challenge. So trying to figure that out. It's also my parents' points. Like they deserve to take their own trips. They deserve to do their own things with the things that they bought for themselves and for us.
Right. So let's take a step back. Are you a DVC owner right now, or are you a DVC family through your parents?
So the original contract was purchased by my parents, and several years ago we went through the process to add my sister and myself and both of our spouses to the deed. So I am technically an owner.
Okay.
I have never contributed financially to the contract, but I am technically a full owner.
And when you are a DVC owner, you get the points, and we talk about that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And I know you've done some work on like the math of it all.
So much math.
But there's also DVC perks. So can you, number one, talk about the perks, and number two, talk about, because you're on the deed, are you eligible for those perks even though you weren't on the original deed?
The way that we rewrote the deed, I am considered a full member, so I am eligible for all of those perks.
Right.
So I haven't utilized many of the perks, but some that I've used, I purchased the discounted annual pass, which was a nice savings. And I've utilized the lounges. I've only been to the one at Epcot because the one at Magic Kingdom hadn't opened yet since my last trip. But just being able to hang out in the lounge and get a free soda and just sit for a little bit, kind of nice. And my sister actually utilized, they have this new additional membership program that they launched this year called the Membership Magic Beyond. So for an extra $100, you get perks. But they went to my sister's family. It was my sister and brother-in-law's 20th wedding anniversary this year. So they decided to go to Hawaii, which they had done for their honeymoon. And they included a couple nights at Aulani. And on the way back, I talked my sister into just going to Disneyland because obviously you need to do your layover anyway.
Obviously.
And with this extra Magic Beyond program, they got park tickets for they basically got free park hoppers and free lightning lanes for what they paid for their tickets
At Disneyland.
at Disneyland.
Yeah.
Which the if you're looking at Disneyland tickets and the way their pricing structure works, it's a little bit different. So it was a very significant savings for them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So when Francine came on and did the bonus episode on Patreon, she talked about like, as a solo, she's like, I don't regret it by any means, but like you can't look at the math too much. And if you're interested in like solo last minute trips, it's not really a great program. And so so I think those are some of the things that you were like, okay, I have some thoughts. So could you maybe address a couple of those things? So like she said, like last minute is not great, and that for solo, it's not super. Could you address those things? Because I know you, again, have thoughts.
I definitely agree that last minute is not the way to go. If you are a last minute traveler, DVC is not for you. DVC is you're in a long-term relationship with Disney because you're getting this contract that's going to last decades, but also you have to think about when you think about a regular hotel, you can cancel last minute and there's no penalty, right? You put down your deposit, you could always get that deposit back. But also the hotels don't run at 100% capacity, right? That's why they have discounts and things. With DVC, they sell the whole building, right? Because it's a timeshare.
Right.
So it's running at pretty much 100% capacity almost all the time. So I remember you'd done your trip where you stayed at the Animal Kingdom Lodge, where you stayed at Kidani Village.
I did, yeah, through the like DVC points thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had mentioned that, the furniture looked a little bit worn down. And honestly, if you think about something being used every single day, it's going to wear down a little bit faster than something that's maybe only 60, 70% occupancy.
Right.
So it is different. It's definitely different there. So for short term, I would not recommend. Can you find stuff? Sure. My parents have definitely booked some last minute stuff. They also live in Florida. So
Mm,
if they can't get something for whatever weekend they were looking for, if they can get something the following week, okay, they're retired. They're not on a schedule. But, like thinking about you saying, oh, you wanted to book this trip in December, it's not going to happen.
right.
It's just not.
Right. It's funny because I think with Kajani, you had said to me like, uh, you were like, well, they're going to do some renovation, so you should give it another shot. But it's
Yeah.
funny because in that episode, I had said, I had really high hopes, and I was kind of like let down because I had such high hopes, and then I had such
Mhm.
low expectations for All Stars sports, and it like exceeded them. And I saw a review where someone was like, oh, that was a bad take. And I'm like, well, it's your expectations, right, of what
Right.
you're doing. And so, I was thinking about the fact that there isn't a lot of like quick service options at DVC. And I was talking to another woman, gosh, I can't remember her name now, but she is a mommy blogger. I met her when I did the VIP tour, and she's a DVC owner. And she's like, a lot of the tips that I give about staying in DVC are like staying in rooms that are close to quick service. And then when I
Mm.
got to the Kidani room, I was like, oh, right. Like I have like a kitchen here, like a kitchenette. I understand now like the creation of those rooms to not, or the creation of the buildings to not have the quick service with the expectation that you're going to be using the kitchen. Do you use the kitchens?
So when it's my big family trips and we have those villas with the full kitchen, we do use them occasionally. Honestly, as the years have gone by, it's just more to store snacks. But there
Yeah.
were definitely years where my mom drove up trays of pre-cooked food. Like we're Italian, so she brought up like chicken cutlets and meatballs, and
Yeah.
she threw them in the oven, and we had some really nice dinners. Staying in just the studio where I've done a trip with just my husband, and we've stayed in one of the studios which don't have a full kitchen, they just have the little kitchenette. I am a big fan of the fact that they have a microwave and a toaster.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to make myself a quick breakfast, throw on the coffee and microwave some oatmeal and bring a protein bar into the park with me, and we're good to go. So that kind of stuff uh, does work for me. I also think it's important to remember that a lot of the DVC buildings are attached to deluxe resorts,
Mm-hmm.
but some are more attached proximity wise than others, right? So Kidani Village is technically a part of the larger Animal Kingdom Lodge campus, but it's a completely separate building, and you technically can walk over there, but it's not convenient. Whereas, let's say the boardwalk, they're just two wings of the same resort. So even though the food options are kind of all on the hotel side, right? If you look at a map of the boardwalk, the current food options are all on the hotel side, the quick service, the table service, the refillable mug station. But it was never more than, I don't know, like a 5-minute walk to go refill a mug or go grab a snack or something. A place like Old Key West, which was designed as just a standalone DVC resort, has that central hub, which has the dining, the Olivia's Cafe, but they also have a bar there. There's also a quick service. I definitely remember family trips where one person would drive down, pick up 7 breakfast sandwiches and bring them back. And then, they have the front desk and the little shop and everything there too. So it's a different, I don't know, it's just a different way of vacationing. And there's just weird little intricacies like that make it a little bit different.
Right. Like I like to think of it like a little home that
Yeah.
you are renting for even just a day, right? Rather than like a hotel room. We should say that like Kidani, you can walk between Kidani and Jumbo House, but there's also a shuttle that
Yes.
continuously goes, so
Yeah.
people can wait for that. So to go back to my question about like, it's better for longer term thinking of your vacations. How about for solos, especially keeping that type of like the food and that stuff in mind?
If you are a solo traveler and you anticipate having a long-term relationship with Disney, specifically most likely Disney World. It can also include Disneyland because they do have two DVC resorts there. If you are willing to make that long-term commitment, I think it's certainly worth considering. I'm not going to go ahead and say absolutely this is the best thing. It really depends on, I think everyone has their own circumstance, but I do think that it's possible. I think for me personally, I'm looking at it more as a mix of solo travel plus my small family of three plus larger extended family trips with my parents and my sister's family. So doing it that way, I think there's much more feasibility there. But
Mm,
like someone like you know, you travel solo, but you also do trips with your mom. There could be some opportunities there, right? You may decide to stay in a studio when you go by yourself, and maybe you upgrade to a one bedroom so that you and your mom have a door between you overnight. I
it's
love
always
doors. Yeah, just to have that little extra privacy. Um, so there's a lot of flexibility in the DVC system. And as a solo, I think you can take advantage of that flexibility and you can make it work for you if it's what works for you. And that's kind of a circular reasoning, but it's kind of how it works.
So no, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that like it does work, but it is like you said, you have to kind of switch gears. It's a different type of trip. And I think I don't know, I think with a lot of people that I've spoken to at least that do solo trips, it was like, oh, should I do this? Should I like, And so they're not thinking long term necessarily because they are they're doing the thing that they're like not quite sure about. But then the people that I'm thinking of, Farah, I'm thinking of Mickey, who are DVC owners, and they're like, oh no, this is what we do. And like, I get to explore the different hotels, and I have a contract here and I have a contract there. And now it just becomes like a base for their vacations. And so, I guess it is also a different way of how you're thinking about solo travel and whether or not that is something that you are committing to in some way. I mean, of course, you can have multiple people in a studio, but it is squishy. So it's like, if you are you going to do this for yourself? And then, maybe you're going to be sharing it. I know that when you went on your solo trip, though, you didn't stay DVC, right?
No, I stayed at the All Stars for a few reasons. One, I didn't want to use my parents' points for my own trip. I thought
Right.
that it was important to me that this was my solo trip, that I was going to do it on my own. Uh, but part of that trip, I realized, oh, I think going forward, I would like to continue staying in DVC resorts. Honestly, I missed having a balcony.
Yeah.
There's just something about being able to look out, but having the privacy, with All Stars and even I think many, if not all the moderates, the windows open up to the exterior
Yeah, that's right.
corridors, right?
It's
So if
only
you
the
open,
deluxe that are indoor hallways and balconies.
yeah, so just having that additional privacy or just being able to look out was, I missed that. Um, and I also did some math because, of course, everyone has their own version of Disney math. And I realized that if I purchased my own contract on top of what we already have as a family, I can add on my own contract, then I could do trips like that January trip and stay DVC. And then I was looking at, oh, well, what other trips would I want to do? And could I make the DVC math work? And at that point, I realized, yes, this would make sense for me.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, like, because Francine was saying too, the woman that I interviewed for the Patreon bonus episode, she's like, sometimes I do DVC, but then because I go so often, a lot of times I'll stay in regular rooms as well. And so
Mhm.
that's why I was interested in knowing when you were there solo and you were staying in regular rooms, or even when you've traveled other times and you haven't stayed in DVC, do you really feel? I mean, of course, between a DVC and an All Stars, you're going to feel different, especially if you're used to, DVC. But like, did you? How am I saying it? Like, did it really feel for example, if you if you had a contract and then you're like, I want to do another trip, are you now going to be reticent to book a regular hotel room because as a solo you've bought a DVC contract and you just want to stay with that? Does that make sense? That's not really well articulated, but
It does. I think for me, it was more like when I was, the bed was just as comfortable at All Stars, right?
yep.
The coffee brewed just as nicely. The buses still got me to the parks. All of that was exactly a similar experience. For me, it was afterwards kind of doing that math and saying, you know what, for $20-$30 a night more,
Mm-hmm.
the equivalent, right? Because DVC math is like bizarre.
Right.
But doing that kind of actuarial equivalency, I could be doing that same exact trip at Saratoga Springs or at Old Key West or even at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. And at that point, the price differential isn't that great. When I'm like, oh, I could really step it up a little bit by making this upfront investment, right? Because if you were to look at prices and say, for whatever, you're planning a trip, let's say 6 months from now, the difference between staying at the All Stars versus staying at Caribbean Beach versus the Contemporary Resort, there's gonna be a huge price difference, right?
Right.
But DVC was designed to kind of squish that. It was designed, in my opinion, it targeted the moderate folks to step up into the deluxe category. So that's kind of how I think about it too. Like, how much extra would you pay to stay at Caribbean Beach for the Skyliner versus staying at, well, Pop Century is also on the Skyliner, right? Or staying at the All Stars, right? You'd be willing to pay a little bit more just for those few extra amenities. The DVC math allows me to do the same thing, but to stay at the deluxe level, which is a nice perk.
Right. So, what you're saying is like, if long term works for you, that's great. If your budget is already kind of consistently moderate, then if you're interested in long term, then think about the investment in DVC, because even like the upfront costs amortize over that long term to be not that much more per trip than if you were staying at a moderate.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good way.
You figured out my crazy
it.
DVC math.
Oh, I know. I love how you were like, everyone does Disney math differently. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
Right? Like the episodes about like just doing a cheaper trip, and someone was like, you can't, you're already there. It's not a cheaper trip. And I was like, but also.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to say was about the beds you had said at All Stars. I think that's just a good thing to remind people that the beds and the linens are the same across all the hotels.
Yep.
And yeah. And like the products that they have, like the teas and the coffees and the sodas, it's the same brand names also.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's important to remind people, like their linen their linen facility is like there's too much happening that they're not gonna switch
Yes.
sheets.
So actually, now that you mention that, there is one other thing in a DVC studio besides the microwave and toaster in the balcony that I love, is the couch.
Yeah.
Having a couch rather than having a second bed or a table and chairs is such a different way to just let your body collapse. I love being able to just lay out on a couch rather than sitting up in a bed, and to be able to come back after a long park day and just plop down on a couch and put my feet up on the coffee table is such a huge difference. And almost all of the DVC studios have a bed and a couch, and it's weird, but it's huge for me.
Well, and it's a pull-out couch. I mean, I know this is a solo podcast, but that is the second bed, if anybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, you're right. I mean, that was the thing that I loved the most about the Kidani room. I got in and I was tired. Why was I tired? I don't know, because I was on a Disney trip.
Because you were at Disney World.
Yeah, and I took a nap on the couch and I was like, "Oh, this is a different experience than napping in the bed."
Yep.
And I love a balcony, and so I had the door open the whole time, like it's all through the night as well, and it did make a huge difference. But it's interesting because like even when I moved into the apartment I have now, I have a big, gorgeous balcony. And a friend, when I was looking for another apartment, she's like, "Well, no one really uses their balconies." I'm like, "I will." And when I'm at Disney and I was saying, I think to Francine, I'm watching the fireworks at the Contemporary on the stairwell, and I look at the DVC building, Bay Lake, and I was like, why aren't anybody on their balconies? So it's interesting that it is such a great park, but I don't feel like people use it that often.
Well, they also may have been watching it from inside because they also have it at Bay Lake Tower. It's floor to ceiling windows that look, so they may not have needed to go out to their balconies.
Right. I didn't see many people watching it from,
Okay,
yeah. And I was just like,
they may have
y'all,
just been in the park.
can I, can I just like go and use your room then for like 5 minutes or 20
Right.
minutes to watch the fireworks? That's funny. But I think that's also like important, right? Because if somebody does like a balcony, then it does make a big difference on your trip for sure. Like then, no one is staying and hanging out in an all-star room just for fun, right?
Yeah.
There isn't anything. I mean, it's just I guess to watch TV or whatever.
Yeah.
So
It's
let's
sort of, you could think
yeah,
about if you were to go on a cruise or you have an inside stateroom, you're going to use that to sleep, right?
right.
And then you're going to do a lot of your activities. If you want to hang out, you're going to go out to the the pool deck or any of those other places where there's lounge chairs. If you have a stateroom with a balcony, then
Right.
you have all of that just as part of your room.
Yes.
So is you could sort of think about that, at All Stars, if you want to go relax, you're probably going to head down to the main pool or a quiet pool or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a really great comparison. So let's talk a little bit about the math of it all. So
Hmm.
you said that your parents bought in 30 years ago, and I think that everybody thinks, I mean, Disney was just a little bit more affordable, even with inflation 30 years ago, even 5 years ago. And so I mean, you're very much in the system now, so you're already thinking about the perks. What about buying in now? Like, what about the Disney math of it all, especially if you're going to buy in it now?
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing the math. When my parents bought, they paid, I think, like $68 a point, maybe less. And now if you're buying it directly through Disney, it's, I don't know, $230 a point for the same
Gosh,
points.
yeah.
Um, and there are various resellers too. So,
Hmm.
current owners who no longer need their contract, they'll sell it through a third party agency. So there is this healthy reselling market. So there's all kinds of different math based on that. What I did was I looked at what are the types of trips that I would want to go on. And then I did the backwards math of how many points would allow me to go on these trips.
Mm,
So, for instance, my solo trip, I went to the Festival of the Arts for the first time, got my very adorable mug from it that I'm
love
sipping out
it.
of currently.
I love it.
And
I
I'm,
actually have been thinking about you as I plan my own Festival of the Arts trip this year, and like thinking about the Festival of the Arts episode, and just thinking about your solo trip because I know you were
yeah.
like, yeah, I thought I'll do it, and
And now, do I need to go to the Festival of the Arts every single year? No, but it's definitely something that I know that I would like to go to every few years, maybe 3, 4
right,
years, whatever it is.
yeah,
Um, my husband and I went to Gay Days several years ago and we had a great time. I would
yeah,
love to be able to do that again, obviously, as a family, right? That's not something I would necessarily do on my own, but it's something we would have a blast doing together. I also would love to be able to just do some other solo trips, right? Even if it's, you know, so I know that the beginning of September is very low point season
hmm
for DVC because the parks are emptier. There's lower demand at that time of year. So I could treat myself to a solo trip for maybe a long weekend or something.
hmm
And then we also do our extended family trips, right? I said, every 4 or 5 years we do that. So just putting all of that in the mix, I thought, okay, would I get enough out of like if I were to purchase DVC, would I actually use it enough for these trips? And for me, the answer was yeah. And I could get an annual pass, and let's say like we do a family trip in August, and then a few months later in January, I go to the Festival of the Arts. I'm using the same annual pass. And then maybe we could do Gay Days also. That would be in
Which is in
June,
June, right?
right? It's always the first weekend in June. So now that's 3 trips in a row. But then I don't necessarily need to go for another, let's say, year and a half, right? Because I could just let that annual pass expire. And then maybe the following September, like a little bit more than a year later, I could do a solo trip. And then, or maybe I definitely want to do the Christmas parties at some point. I've actually never done them. So I'd love to do the Magic Kingdom one. I'd love to do Jollywood. I'd love to do the Festival of the Holidays. I don't have any memory of doing that as a kid. I don't know if it existed when I was a kid. I don't know when the Festival of the Holidays started. So there's enough stuff that would keep me coming back. And to me, there's enough of a repeatability factor of I have these specific things that I enjoy that I would do with enough regularity so that I would get value out of a DVC contract. So if somebody has their annual pilgrimage to Food and Wine, right? That's something that they do regularly. They know they're going to go. Or if somebody, whatever, some people who are Run Disney folks, right? Every
Right.
year they're going to do, are they doing Marathon Weekend, or they're doing the Princess Weekend, or maybe they're doing 2 or 3 of the Run Disney events throughout the year. It's a great potential opportunity for DVC right there. So when my sister got back from her Aulani and Disneyland trip, she's like, I want to buy more points. We need to. Great. So I told her, think about what 5 different Disney trips could look like for you and your family. It doesn't have to all be in one year. It could happen over the next 10 years, right? But what could those next 5 trips be? Do you have a specific resort in mind, right? Because if you're thinking about purchasing into DVC, you're going to purchase a home resort, which gives you those home resort advantages where you can book ahead of people who don't own at that resort. So if you know that you want to go at this specific time of year and you want to stay at the Polynesian in this specific room, well, there's only so many of those rooms. So you probably want to have a contract at the Polynesian in order to book that. If you're the type of person, for me, there are a few locations that I would like to do, but none of them are must-haves. So I would be fine staying somewhere else if that's all I could do. So for me, the home resort advantage isn't as important. I think that also stems from us having owned Old Key West for so long. I'm used to Old Key West being our home resort and everything else being a nice to have. So it's just part of my mindset to begin with.
Right, right.
But if you can figure all of that out and say, yes, I would want to do these things, then you can sort of put together your plan and say, maybe, you know what? I can't think of 5 trips. I really don't have enough of a clear picture. I don't know what my life is going to look like 5 years from now. Then DVC is not the right investment for you. But if you can put that together and you have a more clear picture, then it might be the right thing for you.
That's a really good litmus test. When we were chatting about this before, I really liked that analogy. I really like that idea of like, think about the next 5 trips. And if they are these, like, for me, for example, it's like, well, hopefully I'll be able to do like a quick 4 days at this festival and a quick 4 days at that festival, but I mean, they're all trips that could stay at All Stars. Like, there's nothing super, special about them necessarily. And then hopefully in August, we're going to do a big trip for my mother's 75th birthday, but that is so like once in a lifetime. But now that a lot of my cousins have children and these nieces and nephews, to be able to be like, oh, I see what that could look like, planning for those trips. So that's a really kind of good litmus test, I think, of understanding if DVC is right for you. And you mentioned resale. So if somebody was interested in doing DVC, would you recommend like the resale, so buying somebody's contract or doing a new contract? I mean, recommend, I don't want to put that much pressure on you, but I know that you're not getting some things with the resale.
Yeah. So there is the biggest difference financially is that upfront cost. So for instance, getting 150 points, I'm just using, that's kind of like an average number, I feel.
Yep.
From direct from Disney is going to set you back 30,000 or more US dollars. There are contracts I've been looking at for myself that are half that for the upfront cost on the resale market. So that can be a significant factor. However, the actuarial math that I was talking about earlier, everyone does their weird Disney math. I did the math, and if you average out the price per point over the life of the entire contract, when you're buying direct from Disney, you're buying the longest contracts, right? Because they're going to sell you the things that are actively selling, right? Right now, they're selling the Riviera, they're selling the Polynesian, and they're selling the Fort Wilderness Cabins. And those contracts are good for 40 to almost 50 years.
Right.
So that significant price per point is divided over 40 plus years. If you're buying something on the resale market, each resort has its own expiration date. So like my parents' contract at Old Key West expires in 2042. That's, I don't know, that's like 16, 17 years from now. That's not that far off.
Yeah.
So if you were to buy a contract at one of those resorts, you're dividing that lower purchase price over fewer years. So it can actually wind up being the same or more per year or per point, if you think about it that way. I did the math, so you don't have to. But I realized
you did, everyone. There was so much math that was done in preparation for this, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I basically realized that on average, and these numbers may be different for specific circumstances, but sort of what I was looking at, the difference between buying a brand new contract direct from Disney and buying a resale contract is about $300 a year when you amortize that total purchase price over the course of the contract. In my opinion, $300 a year is pocket change when it comes to Disney, because one of the perks you get as a direct member purchasing directly from Disney is that discounted annual pass,
right?
Which is more than a $300 of savings. So right there, you're already getting that discount back. But again, it is a significant upfront cost, right? Like if you have $15,000 in your pocket and you can do that resale contract, but you don't have that $30,000 in your pocket, so you'd have to finance a direct contract, which is then going to charge you like 11, 12% interest, then maybe it's worth it to you to do the resale contract because that's what you can do. And there is nothing wrong with that. The perks that you get as a direct member are great, but they're perks. It's not you don't buy DVC for the perks. You buy DVC because you want to go back to Disney, multiple times.
True, but I mean, I think the perks are good. I mean, I can see buying for perks in a way, like it's like, oh yeah, well, might as well do it because of the discounted annual pass and like the lounges and early entry and like the special events for the DVC DVC owners, right? Like all of that stuff. I can see that. But like I bought an annual pass and I was like, oh, there's going to be a lot of perks. And I was kind of let down by that. So I think that it's this kind of nice blend of like, yeah, know that you can get some perks, but it shouldn't be the end all be all of your decision.
And the perks can change.
Right. That's right.
So the perks are not guaranteed. They could just one year say, you know what? no more discounts, which
Right.
I highly doubt they would do, but the
Oh, that's right.
discounts
The
can
discounts, all the
change.
discounts. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember Francine had mentioned that most of the discounts, like the dining and merch discounts, are the same if you're a pass holder.
Right.
So that's not really an extra perk if you're already planning to be a pass holder, but
Right.
just getting that initial purchase. Um, if I if I was not already a DVC member through my parents' contract, I would very much prefer to purchase a direct contract for myself.
Mm.
Because I currently am already on their deed and I get those direct benefits, my next purchase personally, I plan to buy resale.
Right.
And that way we have a blend. I still get all the perks, but I'm able to save on that upfront cost.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of winning because I have the perks already, right? So I'm able
Yeah,
to
that's
make
right.
that's an easier decision for me to make. However, when their contract expires in 17 years, I would lose those perks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm no longer a direct member. But at that point, I'll be, I don't know, my late 50s, early 60s, something, and then I could just buy another contract at that point if that's something that I think my family will want, that I will want. I'll be approaching retirement, and so things will be really different then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, too, you have grown up really with those perks as being part of your trips, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So we've talked for so long. This has been amazing. Let's do a quick rapid fire summary if you're
Okay.
good with that. So, do you think it's better for solos or for families?
I think is it was designed for families.
Okay.
Disney World was designed for families.
Right.
Solo travelers have a great time in Disney World. The newer DVC resorts now have these two-person duo studios, which are
Mm-hmm.
designed for couples, but also really great for solos. They realized there was a market for this. So again, I think there are some families that DVC is terrible for. It's just not
Yes.
for them,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's as much for solos as it is for families.
Yeah. Okay, I like that, right? Like it was designed for families, but there's actually a lot of room for solos in it, especially because there's that meme going around that said like Polynesian is like Disney for the grandparents paid. And so
Yep.
and so like those traditional DVC resorts, Key West, Sarasota,
Saratoga, we got it.
Saratoga, thank you. um like those weren't designed to be like kiddie in the same way that the All Stars were. It was designed for this kind of more sophisticated adult type of trip in which there was going to be a blend of different activities. And so yes, for solos there is a lot because you're an adult and you might want to go in the sauna at Key West, which I don't know why one would. You could just walk outside and
For
float
those
up.
2 weeks a year when it's
That's right.
cold.
That's right. Okay, so better long term or last minute?
Oh, absolutely. It's better for long term. There's no question. Yeah.
Better for long trips or short trips?
Either. You could do a long weekend. You could do a holiday weekend and have a great time. You can do a week. You could do 2 weeks. I think it can be great for any trip that you take.
Okay. Better for people who really don't care about the money, like they're not watching the pennies, or better for people who are really watching the pennies?
I think it might be better for the people who are watching their pennies,
Interesting.
because I think those are the people like me who will do the more strategic planning of like, how can I make these pennies go? Not just today's pennies go the farthest, but how can I continue to make these pennies go? Whereas people who aren't necessarily as plugged into the financial situation may be a little bit more, um, they may be a little bit more last minute, or just say, oh, you know what? I want to do this. So if you're not thinking about budget and things, then it's it would I don't think you'd get a good experience out of it. I think it would frustrate you because you
Um,
have a budget of allotted points, right? You
right.
can't, you know, if you're traveling and you had booked a moderate resort and 2 months before you're like, oh, you know what? I got a good bonus this quarter. I want to upgrade. Good for you. Like, go upgrade to that deluxe resort. Once you've locked in that resort and DVC, theoretically you can upgrade to another resort that costs more points. But at the end of the day, you only purchase so many points, right? So if
Mhm.
you run out of them, you're out. You can't just throw money at the system.
Right.
So it's constraining in some ways, but it also frees you up in a little bit other ways.
So it's like a 401k versus your like on your phone sports gambling.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's somebody who's like, "Oh, okay, well I got this extra whatever. I think it is a better long-term retirement strategy than to just kind of see what the fates will allow and gamble and hopefully it turns out really great, but it might not, right? Like I that's how I understand kind of what you're saying. It's a long-term investment, so you need to think a bit strategically at financially is a long-term investment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This was amazing. Is there anything you want to say that we didn't cover?
I really, I think we've kind of touched on this, but it really does change the way you think about vacationing to Disney World. So I
Mm.
do just I want to emphasize that there is more that you are doing, right? Like a travel agent can't book a DVC. They can book a DVC room for you if you're paying cash for it, right? They Disney does hold some inventory back for that. But if you own DVC, you have to book that on your own. You either have to call up member services or you're booking it on the website yourself. Like somebody else isn't going to do that work for you. And modifying and canceling is certainly doable. But again, because availability gets dicey, the closer you get to your trip, it's much harder to modify and cancel. There's also like all the other like use years and you have banking deadlines and all that fun, weird stuff that isn't worth getting into, but it changes, it makes vacation planning a little bit more strategic. And for
Mm.
people who live in spreadsheets and are like, oh, I'm going to do this on this day and I'm going to get my Dole Whip at 3:30 on that day, those kinds of people might already have the mindset of doing the research and see if it's good for them.
Yeah.
If you're this type of person that's like, oh, I'm going to Disney next weekend, it's going to be great, I'm going to figure it out as I go, then it's probably you're maybe not wired for this kind of thing.
Right. Well,
And that's okay.
and what Francine had said in her episode, she wasn't against the DVC, but she's like, it's like the Disney dining plan. Like you can go and maximize your dining credits and like they're practically giving you money at the end of it, or you will waste it and just like throw away your snack credits and throw away this and and all this stuff. And that I totally understood because I love to maximize the dining plan, but it can be really stressful. And so this is the type of thing where you really need to do the planning. And some people really love that.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This was so great. And I hope it really helps people kind of navigate um, the bigger questions of it.
Yeah.
And the math of it is, math is math or whatever, however one wants to get to the math. But I think that you provided a lot of good ideas about the ways to go into thinking about it. Yeah.
Thank you. And what I would like to also offer, if there's any listeners that want to geek out a little bit and dig into this, feel free to contact me. I would love to chat more with anyone who is either just scratching the surface or has been thinking about it for a while. Like, let's do it. Let's geek out.
Yeah. I mean, Jess got some spreadsheets. I've seen them. I should also say that this is a timeshare program, and timeshare is like notoriously. I mean, John Oliver did this thing about like, timeshare is so bad that children's cartoons are making fun of it.
Mm,
But generally, even though I've heard the booking system is frustrating and things like that, but I mean, a lot of Disney things are frustrating now because of just changing priorities and all that stuff. But I haven't heard a lot of people really regretful about Disney timeshare in comparison to any other timeshares. In fact, it's often quite the opposite. Like one of the first people that I met when I think this was a trip with my mother, like back in 2021, he was so excited about his DVC contract. He was an older man and he was like, it's in our will about like
Mhm.
who gets what and all this stuff. And so it really seems that people are like, there isn't a lot of regret about this as an investment, as a timeshare, in comparison to other timeshares that people always feel like are this and this and this and shady, and they keep you in the room and all this stuff. That doesn't. I've never heard any of that with Disney.
Yeah, and you're very correct. And I think a lot of things with other timeshares is it's impossible to get out of them.
Right.
But Disney has such a robust resellers market that if you're no longer needed anymore for whatever reason, it's actually pretty easy to sell it and also to recoup. Like literally my parents' contract, I said they bought it for, I don't know, like $67. They
Right.
could sell it for more than that per point
Yeah.
30 years later,
Right. Yeah.
which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, this was wonderful, Jeff. Thank you so much. And I'm
Yeah,
so
thank
glad that
you.
you came back on the podcast. And like, obviously, this is something that you're really passionate about. And I appreciate you coming back with like some other points. I think that your conversation and Francine's conversation are really nice. Um, they just come from people that have different approaches to traveling, right? So, yeah, no, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. You can reach me on all of the different social media. All of those links are in this description below. You can also listen to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and on YouTube. It'd be really great if you rated, reviewed, and subscribed. It's really a wonderful way to let other people know about the podcast. And as you know, we also have a Patreon where you can get bonus content, you can get bonus episodes, you can get all of the videos of us doing the solo stories, and a whole bunch more. So come and join us on Patreon. And thanks again for listening to the podcast. Bye.